These are my people, the Inuit. For thousands of years we have hunted in this part of the world. The Arctic is so unpredictable. We have all known the pain of waiting for animals that do not come. But the land is powerful. It has always provided for us. There's nothing so great as to catch an animal and share it with my people. The animals are of flesh and blood. Without them, we cannot survive. It is who we are. We have always had to struggle to survive, for we are linked to the land and the animals in the circle of life. If the land is destroyed, the circle is broken and we cannot survive. This is the power of the land.
When European explorers first came to Canada's northern land in the 16th century, they saw only a harsh and desolate place and described it as the land to which God banished Cain. But for the Inuit who settled here thousands of years before, this land was never barren, for they saw that the great rivers and valleys here teemed with life. Today, in what is northern Quebec, the descendants of those early explorers now see promise in the many powerful rivers here, the promise of hydroelectric power.
Now pylons stride over valleys and hills and woods, blazing a trail through the forest to take the power where it will do its work.
For decades, Quebec governments have dreamt of turning Arctic rivers into electric power. Their plan is to harness all the great rivers of northern Quebec and turn the region into one gigantic powerhouse.
Pylons carrying the electricity, which is the lifeblood of machine and city, to central panels, from which one man controls the arteries of an entire region.
Il y a aussi le fait que l'énergie hydroélectrique, qui est la caractéristique du Québec sur le plan d'énergie, est une énergie propre, accessible et un élément clé de la croissance économique.
To satisfy this economic need, many northern rivers have been harnessed, and next in line is the Great Whale River. With breathtaking falls and rapids, the Great Whale River surges through 800 kilometers of wild land, finally flowing into Hudson Bay. Nearly 500 Inuit live here at the mouth of the river in the settlement of Kujarapik, the Inuit word for great whale. For generations, they have shared this land with the Cree people.
My grandfather would tell me stories about the land, the animals. And one of the strongest point that he ever made to me was that go out and look at the environment and look at the weather. Just before daylight, that you would know how the weather's gonna be there in the day, and you would know where to go for that hunt.
The river is a rich source of life. Whales, seals, fish, and waterfowl are in abundance. The whales are drawn from the bay to the mouth of the river to feed on the shoals of freshwater fish. In turn, the Inuit hunt the whales.
It was about 15, 16 years ago that I got my first, I didn't know what to do, but from watching so many times my father and other people trying to get a well, I knew what to do. Yeah, I was wondering if I'm gonna miss. I didn't want to miss my first try, and I got it on my first try, and I was really happy.
The Inuit continue to harvest and live off the country food as their ancestors always have. If the Great Whale River is dammed, the Inuit who live here in Kujarapik will be the most directly affected. What will happen to the ecosystem when the river's flow is altered? Will the animals continue to thrive? What will happen to the Inuit way of life?
Since 85% of the river is going to be blocked, then the rest would be salty water. We don't know what's going to happen. That's the big question that we would like to get from the head of Quebec.
I think people generally have regarded the Arctic as very pristine and clean, that nothing has really affected the Arctic. But when you're living up there, a lot of things have changed and a lot of things have been affected. The Arctic is in fact a barometer in what is happening worldwide to the environment, because it's been one of the regions that probably has been the least exploited in many ways. If the rest of the world can't care about the Arctic, then surely there's no future for the human race. I've always identified very strongly with my mother's side and my grandmother's side, the Inuit side of my being, you know, and I work almost exclusively towards promoting the rights and interests of my people, even though I'm considered, I suppose, what you call a half-breed.
As the industrialized world moves further north, the Inuit have had to change their traditional way of life overnight. Now a new generation of Inuit leaders is charting unknown territory.
Until quite recently, I think we were always seen as the good little Eskimos that didn't really have a whole lot to offer and that didn't really question anything. You know, if they were handed something, that they would accept it, or if things were supposed to change, they would accept it. We have been good little natives for a long time, but things have changed. Things have changed because we felt that if things didn't change, we were no longer going to exist.
The Quebec government would like their plans for the Great Whale River to go ahead tomorrow. Under that pressure, 7,000 Inuit scattered in isolated villages are struggling to find out how the project will affect them. They have chosen Mary Simon to represent them and to help build a united voice.
Right where they're going to do the damming is where we do most of our hunting. It will really hurt us if they go ahead with the damming.
Ima ilui kaulni ilunani kamagiyot sarit sauti but iswang isa wadak tutaman na khawisang no khawisang niu pinaswakta we hangninga iluna limanga takunna lugu. We can't live in isolation of other societies. It would be unrealistic to think that we could live in the Arctic and not have to deal with the rest of the world. We have to be part of the evolution of what's happening, and that's why we feel it's important to get a rightful place in what's going on right now, to be able to speak for ourselves.
Do the white people go hunting? Do they go seal hunting? Do they fish? Do they go out on the land looking for something to eat like we do? They are not like us, like our Inuit culture.
The people of Kujarabik are fearful of the effects of the hydroelectric project on their river because of what has happened to the La Grande River just 160 kilometers south. The La Grande River is the site of a huge hydroelectric project begun in the 1970s. Thousands of square kilometers have been flooded, other rivers have been diverted and left dry, and the whole ecological balance has been altered. La Grande is now no longer a river, but a series of reservoirs. The effects on the native people who depended upon it have been immense.
Well, Hydro-Quebec, we thought it was a government at that time. We didn't know it was a utility. It was a corporation. We didn't know. We thought it was a big government coming in and wanting to work on the land, saying that, sorry, you have to start another life, another way of life.
We are at the La Grande 2 installation on the La Grande Rivière. The La Grande 2 power station is the largest power station of Hydro-Quebec. It's basically the quarter of the electricity of the province of Quebec that is generated in one power station. This area about 5 years ago was dry. It was outside, well, in fact, there was the main road was crossing there, and we have removed the clay from the valley. We have cut the hill. There was a stone hill. We cut it vertical, making some openings for the water intake structure, and we dug some penstocks, some tubes carved in the rock from the power station and up.
Hydro-Quebec wants to build 3 dams along the Great Whale River. They will divert other rivers, build roads and airports, flood valleys, and expand lakes into huge reservoirs. They will take one of the world's last great wildernesses and change it forever.
The rising waters have drowned whole forests. Their skeletons still emerge, showing how recently man came to tame the wilderness.
It's our homeland. That's what it means to us. We have to have an influence on what goes on. If our rights and interests are going to be taken into account when governments and developers go into the Arctic to develop the resources.
C'est avec fierté et avec une profonde joie que j'annonce à l'Assemblée nationale les débuts des travaux de la phase 2 avec un développement très important de 7,5 milliards de dollars et quelques 40 000 nouveaux emplois ou à des personnes au cours des prochaines années.
Just like any other small native community, European culture came in and tried to change our way of life, like telling us that you're gonna have to depend on us, since that's their way of governing people. The white man, how dominant he was when they came. And our parents not knowing that they had a right to their culture to give in. Seems like we have lost our culture a lot.
Robert Bourassa says developing the next phase of James Bay is like a form of Quebec patriotism. But the natives here say it's more like folly, a whim just to keep the air conditioners of New York running. The Cree and the Inuit of James Bay call their boat an odiak. It's a cross between a canoe and a kayak. They will spend the next 3 weeks paddling to New York City, arriving on Earth Day.
Mr. Bourassa, keep in mind that our children and their children is in your hands.
What people often don't do is that they don't look at the whole picture. Whether it's a mega project in Great Whale River, or whether it's the Amazon being destroyed, or other parts of the world being destroyed by development, in the end, all those effects are coming together. And we are in fact all destroying the earth.
This morning, I believe there was consensus in terms of the central role of the Commission. We agreed we were not in the legal business and we're not in the political business. We're in the business of reviewing the environmental and social impacts of projects that are submitted to us. And I think there was complete consensus on that.
If the project goes ahead, it would form the largest hydro complex in the world. Environmental concerns must be addressed. This group will study the effects on the Inuit. It's a mixture of government and Inuit representatives whose perspectives often clash.
What the Cree are saying and a number of Inuit are saying, we are against this project. The agreement says you have no right to be against it, you have signed. And that's very different from social impact. The social impact is something you have to demonstrate, that it will have an impact on a society which is such that the negative side overweights the positive side, and thus the project should be accepted or modified or not accepted.
I don't know how I can separate social and environmental impacts into two different categories, especially when you look at the north and the way people depend on the land and the animals and the living resources. Environmental impact is directly tied to social impact.
The Commission is getting ready for their most important task. The people of the Great Whale region have asked them to come and hear their concerns.
By opening the territory.
They travel far north to the village of Nunuap in Hudson Bay, where the first public hearing will be held. This community of just 260 people will have their chance to say how this multi-billion-dollar project will affect them.
Kutina kumeli bugut hanu tinterno amita amalulume paikenamigut amalutamani tilda.
I thank you, God, for being with us today, and we know you are amongst us now. Please protect our visitors and let us understand clearly what they are here for. The land has to be protected, so we are putting it into your hands. Because although we know we can do things, we know we can't do it all alone.
Inuit isumaluti gidanginni tusagumalakikata taga pinaswalaktabutamanna ikumanniatikut allasimayunik ni hattatanginni kama hattaqaluaqsuta Inuit uqausinginni tuqaaqtiluguvattinut tusallaqilauqsimanginattasuli kikkatunngikaluaquni katutihatiginniuyumik aneq imaneq uumayoqniatituinnaugaluaquni
Hydro-Quebec proposes to build a series of dams on the Great Whale River in order to provide even more water to power the turbines. The Little Whale River will be diverted into the Great Whale River. And in order to contain this water and make it flow into these dams, many dikes will be built in this territory to keep the water channeled in the right direction.
I'm directing this to that person who's an expert in damming of rivers, but really to all of you. Before there was a hydro dam, we stood on that area. My grandfathers, way before our grandfathers, when we were created by God, we've been here for a long, long time, even before the government or the hydro. We want the people of Canada and the world to know our grandfathers, our people has stood there. This is something I just want you to hear.
My fathers and my grandfathers were not run by the government or the hydro people, and I really respect them, and I wish I were in their place.
Our livelihood, our wildlife will be affected, I can see that. If we make this agreement, it will be fought against our future generations. They'll say, what was wrong with our fathers and grandfathers? They'll say, they just said yes to everything. They'll keep saying this about us. They'll never forgive us. A week ago, I met a Cree person who I'd grown up with. He told me something that really hurt me. I told him I wanted to visit him in the summer because I wanted us to go back where we used to go hunting. I wanted to go and see my adopted mother's graveyard, but her grave is no longer there. A big chill went through me. See, when the project goes ahead, they do the damming. That's where all the Indians are buried. That's all going to be washed away. It really hurts me. I'm sorry. I'm crying. I don't want to cry, but I can't help it.
So we are at the La Grande 2 installation on the La Grande Rivière. It's basically 100 kilometers long and 28 kilometers wide. It's pretty large because the area, as you see, is very flat. And when we raise the water by 137 meters, 450 feet, like we did here, it floods quite a vast area.
people there to that Mr. Brasa.
In the news, I heard that Mr. Brasa had said that there are 7 million Quebecers and they want the Great Wall Project. That's what he said. But the people of Kuujjuarapik, they have not been asked if they agree with it or what impact it's going to have on the animal life. There's been no study at all. And all he said is that 7 million Quebecers demand this energy. The minister said the project is no danger.
Great Well project is no danger.
But that minister has never traveled on dangerous ice. He only sits and flies. That's how he travels. He doesn't know how Inuit live or respect our cultural traditions. And I want to ask if you as commissioners ever meet this minister. How strong are you guys? How much influence do you have?
If we decide for some reason that the project should not go on, or whether it should go on with major changes, or whether it should proceed, that decision has to go to the government. And the government can basically decide what to do with it. They can either overturn our decision or go along with it. And people have to realize that even if we as a commission decide one thing, they could learn later on that the decision that we made is not the one that is being implemented by the government.
Ever since we first heard about these projects, I never heard one Inuit that does not oppose such a project.
The fate of the Great Whale River will be decided far away from the land through which it flows. Down south, Hydro-Quebec makes its case for why the project should go ahead.
Bonsoir, messieurs les présidents, mesdames et messieurs les commissaires, mesdames et messieurs du public. Au nom d'Hydro-Québec, je tiens à remercier les comités et commissions pour leur invitation à Hydro-Québec de présenter le projet Grande Baleine dans le cadre de cette première étape qui consiste à la consultation préalable à l'élaboration de la directive. Alors, pourquoi nous proposons le projet Grande Baleine pour répondre à la demande future autour des années 2000? C'est parce que pour nous, c'est la meilleure solution pour équilibrer l'offre et la demande à cette période donnée.
I realize that the Quebec government is very interested in exploiting its resources, and that is their biggest resource is hydro development in our region. The reason that they want to exploit the resources is because they want a good economic base. It's tied to the political aspirations of the province, that the independence that Quebec talks about cannot be realized without exploiting the resources of our region. Those are some of the underlying issues that aren't really being dealt with up front.
De tous les Québécois. Donc, c'est notre rôle principal de s'assurer que l'électricité soit fournie pour tous.
When we are saying that we could use conservation instead of Grande Baleine, this is not exact. There are limits to conservation. Conservation is used and it was an important element, but we need that project. We need that project to face essential Quebec demand.
Are we conserving energy in the province of Quebec? I personally don't think we are. Sometimes I go downtown and I look at the city and every building is lit up. All the high-rises, every floor is lit up. Is that conserving energy? I don't think so.
Dans le système démocratique qui est le nôtre, ces choix se font dans le cadre de notre système politique. Il revient donc aux partis politiques de définir leur vision du développement et s'ils sont élus et forment le gouvernement, ils ont le mandat de la population et le droit d'articuler cette vision. C'est ce que le gouvernement du Québec a fait. Au Québec, aujourd'hui, on retrouve une majorité assez importante de la population qui est convaincue de l'opportunité de développer la baie James. On comprend cependant
The dominant society doesn't have to be in a position to dictate or run our lives. If we remain dominated, our culture is going to die, our language is going to die, and we will die as a distinct people.
If the Great Whale River is dammed, effects will be felt throughout an entire region. North on the Hudson Bay coastline is the village of Inuktitut. People here are particularly worried about how the damming will affect the wildlife. It's a community that has known starvation.
God's creation should not be rebuilt by men because he had created it for the use of people and animals. He made it good so men should not spoil it.
As part of our review of this project, we are very interested in knowing what you feel about the proposed project, the roads, the dams, and the impact on your social and environmental home. So who would like to go first?
Sometimes the river, the natural world itself, has its own way of destroying things. We know this well. But when they built that reservoir, it will destroy our wildlife, our food chain, and affect the sea currents. I hunt a lot. I rely on country food only. That's the way of life I've grown up with. I rely on seal and wildlife as my daily sustenance. That's why I'm here to speak, because of the danger. We have to make good plans for future generations and respect the land.
We have seen that after the Eastman River was dammed as part of the La Grande project, it's now dry. There's no drinking water. People there have to travel by canoe to get drinking water, and this will happen to us in Cook-Joarapi. We depend on the river. We have nowhere else to go for water. A lot of people have left Eastmain because of the water problems. Eastmain is a good example of what could happen to our community. I was saying there's a lot of us elderly people who really rely on the country food, and I'm a prime example of that. What will happen if we are not able to have our country food? When I went south, I really thought because they were white people, their rivers would be clean. But even the lakes that were once big lakes were really bad. They were really polluted. Once upon a time, the water must have been good. We went quite a distance without drinking water because the water was undrinkable. Water is our life. It makes us live. And the Great Whale River is our main source, and yet they want to dam it. It'll be ruined like the other rivers. They're no good now.
With the cutting of the Great Whale River, of course, the salinity will come up more in depth in the estuary of the river, and maybe the water intake won't be usable anymore. So what we have done, Hydro-Québec, and we will continue, is that we have undertaken some studies to define some technical solution.
Sometimes we cannot even drink our water. We have to listen in the radio. If we have to drink water, they will tell us. If they tell us, go ahead and drink it, but we have to boil it. I see a lot of people by canoe getting water. Long time ago, they used to eat their fish in their river. But right now, no, because of mercury.
One of the unforeseen effects of the damming and flooding of the La Grande River has been to release mercury that is naturally present in the soil and rocks. The mercury has reached dangerously high levels of concentration in the fish, a staple of the native people's diet.
The whole issue of mercury poisoning is one that is blown out of all proportion. And when you look at the number of people that are likely to eat fish in that area, you will find that it's a very small number, probably somewhat less than 200 people.
And we have to be checked. They have to cut your hair, strain off your hair to check how much level of mercury you have in your body. And if you have so much, then they tell you not to eat the fish.
This summer, I went to where I was born near East Main on James Bay. It is destroyed. I saw with my own eyes. It is not right that the animals are destroyed. They can't be replaced by money. If the white people seem to think they're so smart, let them figure out how to compensate us for the loss of the animals. We can't be compensated by money.
What should those people do then? I mean, what should these...
We'll ship fresh fish to them if it's necessary.
It's outrageous that you plan to contaminate us. If we did that to you, you would turn around right away and say, this is what we do for self-defense. We are peaceful people. Would take a lot to put us into that sentiment, though.
It's been less than 40 years since we suffered hunger, and now the wildlife will be ruined by all this. We are not rich in our community. We are poor. Some of us are really poor. We are going to be poorer because the wildlife really helps us to survive, and the dam builders will ruin our food supply. This really hurts.
If you're going to develop any project, obviously there are going to be some impacts associated with that development. And in the same way that you can't bake an omelet without breaking a few eggs. You won't get the omelette otherwise. So there is no such thing as a development without any impact.
How can it be that we Inuit will be hungry when the white people are gaining financially from our land?
Oh yes, Hydro-Quebec will propose some measures to be sure that the Inuit people, in fact, and the Cree people have opportunities for jobs on the project, yes, for sure.
I have children. My children tell me they don't want their river to be dammed. My children speak of not wanting their river to be dammed, and I too don't want that. It's our land. We don't want it disrupted and damaged. Different nations are given land, the white people and the Inuit. We love this land. We love our land. We don't want to disrupt it. We say no.
For us, if the project is built, it's like going to the slaughterhouse, except it's just a little bit slower.
Thank you. You did a great job. You really did.
There's a real need on the part of governments to take more seriously the knowledge that my people possess. My grandmother used to teach us how to respect our surroundings, and how she always taught me that we should respect our elders and believe in what they say. One story that she used to tell us all the time was the years when they almost starved because her husband had died, and my mother was a little girl during that year when all the animals disappeared. She used to talk about how she hunted and fished and how nature provided for her. That every day something happened where she could bring something home. She'd come home with a rabbit, or she'd fish through the ice in these big cracks on the ocean, and she'd get one little cod that would feed them for a day. When she talked about it, it was like she had this relationship to the whole thing that nobody could understand except her.
It's, in my view, a desolated area. In our geography books, when I was a child, it used to be described as barren land. And it's certainly the impression it left me.
The output of the power station is, in engineering term, 35.8 terawatt hours. In more practical term, it means it's enough to light 358 billion 100-watt bulbs, or to operate 35.8 billion hair dryer, in one sense.
This has been the story of man's vision and man's ability to bring his vision to actuality in just one section of a vast country whose resources are yet in process of development. The untapped wealth and power of the country are the heritage of all, farmer and banker, engineer and factory worker. It remains to find how best this heritage can serve the cause of all humanity. A precious heritage, but also a challenge.
As a young person, I do not support this hydro project. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be inflicted on us young people. The white people are just thinking about money. They aren't thinking about the land. I'm thinking The white people already have their meat from the south. The Inuit have their wildlife too. Their meat from the land here, which is Inuit food. If the dam goes ahead, if it goes ahead, contamination will spread throughout the animals. Why are they doing this to us? Why is Hydro doing this to us? How are we going to survive once our food is destroyed? I do not support Hydro-Quebec at all. These are my people, the Inuit. For thousands of years we have hunted in this part of the world. We have always had to struggle to survive, for we are linked to the land and the animals in the circle of life. If the land is destroyed, the circle is broken and we cannot survive. This is the power of the land.